Ooh, it's all official now. You didn't used to speak to me that way. So I really want to welcome everybody who's here. And I'm kind of tired. We did a bunch of births this past few days. So I'm just kind of a tired doula, but I'm a happy one. And want to thank the mamas who are here for coming and sharing their beautiful stories and their gorgeous journeys. I think that one of the questions that I get asked the most as a doula, or the trepidations that mamas have the most of when they're working with me, is around labor itself. Like, what is it? How does it feel? How do I deal? Can I deal? Questions like that. And all of you gorgeous mamas who are present, there's a couple more who I'm sure will pop up shortly, but all of you have beautiful, powerful stories of labor that I really wanted to capture and share. And I'm glad that you felt the same about that. So right now, in our little circle, we have our wonderful Mama Cara Potts, who was my second. She was the first mama that I was the primary midwife for in my first apprenticeship. And that itself is an amazing story, just that. But so definitely that labor was this amazing place in my heart, and we had a beautiful journey together. And then we have the beautiful Mama Michelle Hoy, who had a gorgeous little fierce, amazing daughter. And I was blessed to be one of her doulas in charge of her amazing birth experience. And then we have Danielle Drake, the more recent mama, who had her baby despite the stern consternations of the folks at Kaiser. Had an amazing birth. So we're gonna share all of those gorgeous gifts. So you, between the three of you, who would like to go first? Okay.
I figured I'll get it over and done with. No, no. Okay, so I'm Michelle, and thank you, Samsara, for the introduction. I gave birth to our daughter Naomi June 14th in 2018. We had her in Alta Bates Hospital in Berkeley, and I knew when I first got pregnant, I really wanted a natural vaginal birth, and I knew I will need a lot of support with that, and I knew I would need a doula, and so I did a lot of searching around, and I was privileged enough to get in touch with Samsara. And you know, she was pretty much our angel all the way through, because my husband and I are first-time parents, and we really did not know what to expect, especially with, for me personally, the hospital system, and having to really advocate for ourselves, especially when it came to having a natural birth, because it just felt the hospital was just, you know, it's the business of, you know, birth. And it just felt like we really wanted to avoid, as they term, I guess, the cascade of interventions. So, you know, we were really trying hard to prevent that. And so that's where, you know, we worked with Samsara a lot. And she gave us a lot of guidance with birth plans, with nutrition, and with just what to expect, which, you know, Mike and I, my husband, we you know, we read a lot, but it doesn't really come home until someone helps you through it, or you do it yourself. So it was really, really good to have Samsara there guiding us through and preparing us for the birth of Naomi. And so, you know, we went through the usual things as far as, labor. I know as far as, so she, I think her due date, it was around June 14th. It was sometime that week. And during that week, I think with most doctors, they have you go through that daily stress test. And I remember yes, exactly. And so I think I did it twice. It must have gone a couple of days. Everything was fine. And then the third day, that was when they showed that I had very, very high blood pressure, which is kind of unnatural for me. It's not natural for me because I usually have very low blood pressure. And so it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And so I was very, very cautious about that because I'm like, why do I have such high blood pressure? That's kind of odd. And so for the doctors, it meant that it showed signs of preeclampsia. And they said that they found, proteins in my urine that kind of said, okay, this could be, an onset of preeclampsia. I was still hesitant, and they said, okay, well, why don't you go to the hospital and get your blood pressure measured again. I guess I wasn't really trusting, their equipment, but at the hospital, it was still high. And I know we were texting you, Sarah, weren't we? We were like, what's going on here? I wasn't even prepared to go to hospital. I was just at the doctor's office and it was a beautiful day. And I was just like, okay, well, this is just another, checkup. And that was about it. But the doctor said, you're going to hospital and you're not leaving until you give birth. I'm like, what? And I just was not prepared. But I went into hospital. I remember the doctor wanted to induce me straight away with Pitocin. And again, I was like, whoa, that's, let's think about this. And she also wanted me to take, I think it was misoprostol. And I remember during our discussions with Samsara, that was something that really was not, something that we wanted to take. So, I think we were texting you, right, Samsara, and you were just saying, no, don't take it. So we talked to our doctor and she said, okay, you don't have to take that, but maybe we can do the Cook's balloon, which I was happy for because it didn't require medication. But then it was also, well, why did you recommend misoprostol when you said, when you're like, okay, you don't have to take it. It was very odd to me. I'm someone who really does not like to take any medication whatsoever. So, if I don't have to take it, I won't take it, So that was already kind of odd for me that the doctor would recommend something, but then when I pushed back, she would say, okay, you don't have to take it. I was like, oh gosh, that's kind of a little crazy. And so thank goodness we had Samsara there to help guide us through that. So I went into hospital, I was admitted into hospital and they inserted the Cook's balloon. And, I started getting contractions straight away. And luckily I could use the Cook's balloon because I had already dilated like a centimeter. And I think that was due to, because I was doing acupuncture once a week. And then I think I stepped it up a little bit more as my due date came through. And I felt like that really helped prepare my body for, giving birth. And so I was really thankful that I was able to do the Cook's balloon because I was already dilated. So, that was good. So I was there overnight and then the next morning I dilated 2 to 3 centimeters. So it really wasn't as much as they were hoping for. So they did end up, administering Pitocin, like a pretty low dose. And then they would keep stepping it up every 30 minutes to an hour. And then I think by the time it reached, I think it was 10 units. I can't remember what the units were. Mm-hmm. The contractions definitely started coming on stronger. So around 4 p.m. I was dilated by, around 4 centimeters and the doctor took out the Cook's balloon. And then I remember Samsara and Mika, you came over and gave me this amazing massage, which was lovely because I was in a hospital. I was kind of hooked up to things and I was just really uncomfortable. But then Samsara and Mika came and just gave me this amazing massage with it. I remember castor oil and some essential oils. And and I was like, oh, that was great. And and then they left and we thought, okay, well, because we all thought that I still had a little while to go, you know, everyone, because, you know, I was 4 centimeters dilated. So, you know, I had a little bit of time. Then around like 5 p.m., you know, there was this pop and my water broke. And I was like, and I'd read a few books and stuff, and I just knew in my head that when my water breaks, that's it. Everything's going to happen. You know, things are going to happen really fast. And so it did. And I was like, and I remember I said, Mike, get the nurse, get the nurse. I think my water broke. And so he got the nurse, and then she said, bring Sarah and Mika back. Bring Sarah and Mika back, because I think they're going to need to be here. So then we got, you know, he was texting her, Sarah and Mika, like, come on, I think you better come back. And I think, you know, we were like, what? And then, and that's when the contractions started coming. And so from a labor perspective, that's when the active labor really came in. And I'm not quite sure why, but I guess maybe because of the Pitocin, or not too sure why, but the contractions for me was quite difficult. They were quite painful, and they came pretty strongly and very close together. Like, you know, I would hear, you know, on movies and things like that, where, you know, they'll be like 5 minutes apart or whatever. That never happened to me. It was basically like water broke, you know, I mean, contractions, and they just never stopped going. And I was like, oh, and so this is where Mike really helped me. You know, just having someone there to help you through those contractions was amazing. As I was going up the wave of the contraction, he would push on my lower back, and then in between, you know, the very short in between, he would massage my back. And so that really helped me, even though in my mind, I'm like, should I get an epidural? Should I get an epidural? I'm like, no, I don't want an epidural, but it was just like, it was definitely on my mind.
It's a thought, for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely a thought. And this was also when, you know, I had practiced meditation, and I've done yoga, you know, for, a decade or so. And so I felt like the meditation really helped me through the labor. Really just more breathing and just letting it go. And I felt, yeah, because there was nothing else, because I didn't want to take the epidural. So I was just like, okay, I'm just going to have to deal with this. And I wasn't quite sure, especially when you don't know when it's going to end. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to keep riding the wave. I'll just keep riding the wave. And then I guess after 2 hours, I was fully dilated. I was 10 centimeters dilated. And I remember at that point, I said, I have to push. I got this huge urge to push, and everyone's like, no, don't push yet. And then Sarah was like, I think you just took one look at my face and you said, oh no, she has to push. Get the doctor in. And the doctor came in, and she's like, oh yeah, she's fully dilated. Okay, let's get everything ready. And no one was prepared. I remember, Sarah, you were telling me this. I was more like just concentrating on my contractions, and I was like, you know, and no one was prepared. The doctor wasn't prepared, so they had to rush to get the carts in. And even the nurse was like, you know, I was out on a break for 15 minutes, and then suddenly you were like ready to go. I was like, yeah, I don't know. She just can't, you know. And then after like 5 pushes, she came out, and you know, it was pretty amazing. And you know, we did the skin to skin straight away, and we got her nursing pretty much straight away, and yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience. And yeah, it was, you know, after she came out, you know, I think, you know, the nurse that we had, I think her name was Tara, she was also one of the angels in that room. Like, she really helped me through the contractions. And, you know, but she, you know, we had our birth plans everywhere, and she made sure that, you know, they followed the birth plans, you know, what we needed and what we wanted. And it was just nice. It was in the evening, you know, the lights were dimmed down low, and, you know, I had all the people I wanted around me. You know, there was Sarah, Mika, my husband, and the nurse. There weren't too many people. It was good. And yeah, just, it was just really relaxing. And Naomi was just sleeping on me, and yeah, it was good. It was really nice. And then I think it was really good. And then I think, after a couple of hours, I think once everything had stabilized and they knew Naomi was stable, they, you know, I think we moved to a different room, the I guess the post-birth room or whatever. But yeah, that was a pretty amazing experience. But definitely, it was great having Sarah and Mika there just to help through it and to advise and to help advise Mike what to do. And it, without them, it would have been, a lot tougher. But yeah, but I do still believe to this day it was the castor oil and the essential oils that made my water broke, because it was pretty much straight away after that. After you left, it was like, pop, and then, oh, okay, here we go.
Well, all that lovely oxytocin from a good massage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Underestimate the power of that. And yeah, just being able to relax and feel safe, even though, in spite of the surroundings, just let your body do what it was pretty much ready to do. The Pitocin gave it a little tap as well, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what do you think was the most helpful thing about your experience for you? What was the most helpful thing?
The most helpful thing about my experience, I think definitely one of the most helpful things was having you and Mika on board with us through the journey to help navigate us through the system, because I had no idea that, doctors, there was an ulterior motive. Like, I guess I'm kind of naive from that perspective, but there was also a part of me that just does not like medication and just wants things as natural as possible. And so I think definitely you and Mika were our angels through all this, and was definitely the most helpful thing throughout this. Obviously, smaller things like acupuncture and just practicing meditation and things like that was very important. And just, eating properly was very important. But without, I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of that without guidance from, my doulas. Just giving me the confidence to allow my body to do what it needs to do and not have to come into a lot of these medical interventions, because we can do it. That's what our body is made for. So, just the fact that, you told us don't take the misoprostol, it's that to me is invaluable, because otherwise I would have said, okay, the doctor knows best. Okay, well then just take it, but it was good that you taught us that we didn't have to take everything, just on their say so. So I thought that was probably the most helpful thing, just having you guys on board with us on our journey through to giving birth to our little girl, Naomi.
Yes. And how old is Naomi now?
She is going to turn 3 in a couple of weeks. Oh my goodness. She is so big.
It's crazy.
Yeah, she was using chopsticks the other day. We're like, what? Because we were using chopsticks and she wanted to copy us, and somehow she managed to get a little scallop on the chopsticks and into her mouth. We had like, there's no way she could do that.
She's a genius. That is totally what is there anything else, like if there's a mommy to be who's listening or will see this in the future, like what would you really want to tell a mommy to be about, having a baby, how it feels, what you need? What would you like to share with that person?
Just to have confidence in your own body, and that, I guess, we have all the things that we need to be able to give birth, and that, we don't necessarily need to have a C-section, or, we don't have to take an epidural. I mean, I have no problems with any mama who needs that for their birth. That's fine. But if someone's looking for, sort of a natural vaginal birth, it can be done. And I guess maybe what I would, maybe if I had been younger, maybe a hospital is not necessary. Maybe, you could go to a birth center. It doesn't have, or you could do it at home. That was something that I guess I sort of didn't realize. But then I guess I'm of advanced age, I was supposed to be.
That you didn't birth like you were of advanced age, my friend.
But yeah, just know that there are other alternatives, that you don't have to be in a sterile hospital. You can be in a warm environment, and, just have the people around you that you want, and to, you don't, I just feel like it doesn't have to be in a hospital setting, and you can be warm and loving. And I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I guess I just didn't, I just didn't realize it as much, and probably didn't prepare for it. And also, I think one thing that helped me, I'm Chinese, and there's this thing in the Chinese culture where after you give birth, there's a month of just doing nothing, where all you have to do is sleep, feed your baby, just take care, feed your baby, and eat and sleep, basically. So one of the things that I didn't do all of that, but I signed up for a meal service that catered to, I guess, Chinese people, and used Chinese recipes and herbs. And I really do feel like it was outstanding. It's called Jing Mummy out in LA, and they use the best ingredients. They gave you so much food. Like I signed up for a 4-week thing, and I had food for 6 weeks.
Wow.
There was a lot of like herbal drinks, really fresh food. They would deliver it, I think, once a week, frozen in foil packs. And so you just stick it right in the freezer, and then you just heat it up. So you didn't have to cook. That was the one thing that was really invaluable to me too. After having a kid, I didn't have to cook. And I had these nutritious meals, and I really feel like that really helped me heal from, or recover from giving birth. Because I really had, obviously, my body was going through recovery, but it healed very well. And I think it's because, the Jing Mummy, and it really helped with my milk production too. It was, I can't say good enough things about it. So if you're
really wonderful.
Yeah.
What I like about that is that it's from your people, from your lineage, healing and yummy food and good herbs from your lineage. Yeah. Every tribe of women has the herbs and foods that they want their pregnant women to consume. And I'm so glad you had access to yours.
Yeah. No, it was pretty amazing. So yeah, no, it was good.
So thank you, Mama.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you hang out.
Yeah, I will.
Please do. And after everybody speaks, if there's time, it's late, it'll be late. I do want to make time for folks to ask questions. So I want to welcome Mama Emerald. Hello, Emerald.
Hi.
How are you, beautiful thing?
I'm good. I've had so many life changes, I feel like, in the last 6 months.
I totally know. So I just wanted to welcome you in. And we have, when Michelle just spoke, and there are a couple other mamas, but whoever wants to speak next is welcome to do so. Who wants to speak next? Danielle.
Thank you. I'm just going to jump in here because I realize I'm really hungry and dinner just got made. So.
Oh. you know I love to watch you eat, right, friend?
I know.
Girl.
Yeah. So my name is Danielle Drake, and I also am one of the older moms. And that was really, really significant. I'm actually the oldest mom I've ever heard of.
You want to share the number? Not that it really matters. But
yeah, I delivered at 47. So I was 46. I had my birthday. I was 47 when I delivered. And so, and my pregnancy was a complete and total surprise. Like it was a shock from top to bottom. Like I wasn't expecting it at all. I was just, living my life. I had just finished a PhD. I was like, doing my own thing. And then I pop up pregnant and no one, well, my family, they just couldn't even get over it. But I knew I wanted some support because most of my family lives in Los Angeles and I'm the only one really that lives in the Bay Area. And so my fear was going to go into labor, and my partner also lives in Los Angeles. And my fear was that I was going to go into labor and no one was going to be there. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make sure I get a really good doula. And so in comes Samsara and Kathleen, and I think I called Samsara like late night and
You did.
thinking I was going to like just leave a message, and she answered. And I knew when she answered, I was like, this is the one. And I think for me, the biggest thing was because I'm an older mom, and well, it's a combination of things. It was my age, my ethnicity. I'm identify as Black, and my weight because I'm a tall, curvy woman. Um, like the doctors just could not see that I was going to, have a healthy birth that was going to be natural. And so when Samsara and Kathleen came on, it was just really about educating me so that I could go into my doctor's appointments really strong and well educated and prepared to fight for myself and to fight for my son, Kingston. And so, throughout the process, I feel like I had probably one of the best pregnancies a person like with all of those factors could have. I mean, I didn't, like my feet never swelled. Everybody was like, oh, and your feet are going to swell and all of this other kind of stuff. And I was like, that never happened. Generally speaking, I felt really good like throughout my pregnancy. And then in the last 2 weeks is when it got real, because that's when the doctors wanted for me to be induced. They said that I would not make it to 40 weeks, that I was going to be induced at 39 weeks. And then when I got there, I was just like, no, I don't want to be induced. I want to go and see how long I can go before something happens. And then I absolutely have to make a decision. And when I went to do my first non-stress test, the nurse and my OB double teamed me in my appointment. And my OB told me that she was concerned about me and she wanted to make sure that I was going to go home with a baby. Like she said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so mad. I was furious. And I'm sitting here in the non-stress test and I'm like, thankfully, just like all like meditated up, prayed up, everything up. And it was like I was watching myself as these two ladies were like coming at me. And I was like, ain't this about nothing? I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. So I was just sitting there looking at them and I was just kind of nodding, and thank God we were in COVID because I had a mask on so they couldn't see any of my face. And I'm just looking at them like, because I wasn't going to fight. I refused to allow my blood pressure to spike because I knew that they would try to, attribute that to some craziness and then try to get me into the hospital. So I just was like, keeping my cool, keeping calm, breathing throughout this whole situation. And then later that day, I had an appointment with Samsara and Kathleen, and I think we were supposed to be talking about breastfeeding or something, but they just let me vent for like the whole hour and a half.
Yeah.
And
We got back to it.
yeah, it was just like I needed, but I needed that. I needed that affirmation. I needed that confirmation from them that I was like doing the right thing. But then like because I didn't do that, I didn't allow them to induce me. They were like, well, we need to see you in here twice a week for a non-stress test and all of this stuff. It felt very punitive, actually. But I was like, whatever, it's fine. I'm going to make it through. So then my partner comes up from LA, and we're concerned because I want to have the baby while he's here, and he can only be here for like 2 weeks. And like, we're like here, we're waiting. I'm like walking and, doing all of the things that Samsara and Kathleen are telling me to. They were like, maybe you should add in acupuncture. So I started going to the acupuncturist twice a week and taking the herbs. And then I was able to have an appointment at Kaiser with a midwife and to do a membrane sweep. And I was like, okay, well, this is an intervention that I can do. It's not as, it's not taking medication. I felt like this is what I can do that will sort of appease the hospital system enough to get off me. And so I ended up doing doing a membrane sweep with a wonderful midwife who basically, she was the only person at Kaiser who ever sat down and was like, how are you doing? Tell me about what's going on. And I was like, wow, okay. So then I was able to really feed her everything that Sarah and Kathleen and I had been thinking about, and my partner, that we have been thinking about and wanting and all of that. And I told her about my experience with my OB, and she was like, okay, so this is what we can do, because we were getting to, I think at that point I was past my due date, and we were heading upon 41 weeks. By the way, they gave some bogus statistics about I think it was like stillbirths or something like that. Like stillbirths go up 50% after, if you go past your due date or something like that. Okay, let me just break this statistic down for you. This is like one stillbirth in a million that then went up to 2 stillbirths in a million. And that was a 50% increase.
Wow. That's right.
I was like, so done. But they try to use data and information to like scare us into making decisions that help them with their own goals at these hospitals. And so I was just like, absolutely not. I had just finished my PhD. I was like, I know how to do some research. I went online and got on the medical like journals and everything. I was not playing around, because I knew that I could have a natural birth. So anyway, long story short, we finally get to I had scheduled an induction at like 41 weeks. I was like, okay, I'll do it at that point, but not a minute sooner. And hopefully my son will decide to come. So it's like the Thursday, and I had scheduled it for Saturday. It's like the Thursday before, and I was like, man, we're getting there. I can't believe this. And so I had a acupuncture appointment scheduled the next morning at 10 a.m. And I was just like, all right, well, here we go. This is our last shot. That morning, that Friday morning at 3:59 exactly. And I remember because I happened to look at my watch when I woke up, I felt something and I was like, I wonder, is that a contraction? Because I never had Braxton Hicks. I never had any of that. And so at 3:59, I just like noted it in my mind. And then I like went to the bathroom and came back. And then about 9 minutes later, I had another one. And then I had downloaded this app on my phone, this labor tracking app, and it was actually really nice. I can't remember which one it was, but it was in the Apple store. And it was like these pastel colors, very calming. And every time you have a contraction, you would like hit this button, and then it would start playing ocean sounds, which I thought was really nice. And it was telling me on the screen, breathe, breathe. And I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. So,
That's great.
so anyway, my contractions start and they start coming faster, like first 9 minutes apart, then 7 minutes apart, then 5 minutes apart, and it stays there for a little bit. And then I'm like at 4 minutes apart, about an hour and a half into my labor. And I was like, is that right? I don't know. But I was like, well, let's just go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and on the way, called Samsara and Kathleen, and they're like, no, it's not time yet. Don't worry about it. And the thing that they were telling me is they were like, do all your laboring at home. Try, if you're going to do it, if you're going to deliver at the hospital, try and do as much of your laboring at home as possible. That way, when you get to the hospital, that, there's like really nothing that they can do. You're just like going straight in and delivering. So I don't know. I think I was just like, well, let's just go see, because I had no idea. So I get there, I'm like 3.5 centimeters dilated. They're like, no, go home. Meanwhile, this is taking kind of a long time. And we left the hospital probably around 8 in the morning. We went there probably around, I'll say like 6.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time we get back to the house, it's like 9 in the morning.
Yep.
And my contractions are coming like hard and fast. And I was like, what? I had no nothing to measure it against. So I don't, no point of reference. And so I was just like, what is on? I don't understand. Well, and so, but I knew I could do it. So I'm in my apartment and I'm just going through it, and I'm breathing, and I'm standing, I'm rocking, I'm like doing all the things. I'm like rolling around on my birth ball. I'm mooing like a cow, like just like whatever I can think of. It was so funny. And I was like, well, the whole neighborhood must know that I'm in labor, because I was like, I was vocalizing. I'll just say that. So anyway, I didn't want to get turned away from the hospital again. So I kept waiting and waiting. Like this just feels like a lot. Like these contractions are taking my breath away. I don't know what to do. So my partner was like, well, just call Samsara again. Let's just call her and see. And Samsara was like, has your water broken? And I was like, no. She was like, well, are you spotting? I was like, yes. And she said, do you feel like you need to push? I was like, yes, I need to push now. And she was like, well, let's just go to the hospital. We'll meet you there. And so when I get there, it's like wall to wall people in the little drive-through area. And I was like, how are we going to get through and park? There's like nowhere to park anywhere. I'm starting to panic. And then my partner is in the car like, hey, she's in labor, and like, yelling out of the window. And then I see Samsara and Kathleen like come out of nowhere like 2 angels. And they were like, here, we'll take you upstairs. James, you park the car and you just come up as soon as you park. And I was like, thank God. So I'm like walking through the hospital, and they're like, oh, do you need a wheelchair? And I'm like, no, I just want to get to upstairs where like I could do it. And then that contraction hit, and it like brought me to my knees almost. I was like, oh my gosh. And they were like, we think you need a wheelchair. I was like, I think so too. I'm ready. And right as all of that was happening, one of the labor and delivery nurses at Kaiser happened to be walking by. Yep. And she was like, oh, I can get you upstairs quick. No, stop at security or anything. So we get upstairs into labor and delivery triage, check in, and they're like, oh no, we don't have any more rooms. I thought I was gonna melt on the floor. I was just like, oh my God. And then another contraction hit. So I was just like, you know. So anyway, I by that time James comes upstairs and they're like, okay, well, we found you some space in the PICU. Get to the PICU. I'm like starting to take off my clothes and everything, and this is like the realness of labor. I simultaneously urinate and throw up. Like a contraction hit, and that was it. I was just like, bleh, you know, and then everybody is like, oh my God, that's great. It's such a great sign. And I was thinking, have they lost their minds? Like, I'm delirious. Like, what is really going on? So at this point, they finally check me and they're like, oh my goodness, you're 9.5 centimeters dilated. We got to get you into labor and delivery right away. So like I dilated 6.5 centimeters in about like 2.5 hours or something crazy. It was amazing. So then they're like trying to get me, you know, into labor and delivery, and they finally get me over there and they're like, don't push. Again, like Michelle, don't push. And I'm like, are they crazy? I have to push. I like have not been pushing for a long time. It's not possible anymore. And so they're like, okay, well, just do one practice push. And so I did a practice push and they're like, oh no, you're not fully effaced. Oh, but before all of this happened, like I'm ready. And they're like, no, don't push. There's not a doctor and the midwife's not in here. And I was like, well, where is she? Somebody go get her. Like, why is she not here? Anyway, do the practice push. You're not fully effaced. And so I was like, they were like, you're going to have to wait through 2 more contractions. I was like, no way. There's no way that's happening. So they were, and for me not to push. So it came and I was like trying to not push, but I just ended up like kind of blowing a half of a raspberry and pushing the rest of the way. Anyway, they checked me again and they were like, oh, okay, you're 10 centimeters, you're fully effaced, it's, you know, it's go time. And so they were like, okay, push. So I push again. Baby pops out, 2 pushes. I could not believe it. Samsara's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. You just gave birth like a 25-year-old.
I think I said 16-year-old. Let me just back that up.
16-year-old. I was just like, oh my goodness. I was just relieved that I was no longer in labor. Like
Yeah.
because the contractions, I didn't realize that I was dilating as quickly as I was.
Yeah.
So because I didn't realize that, I didn't realize the intensity of my contractions. Like that's the thing that was sort of startling to me in the whole process.
Yep.
So afterwards though, like my baby, he just came out perfect, like healthy, happy. All of the things that they say about older moms, it's all bullshit. You can have a healthy, natural, everything. Like for me, no C-section, no induction, no epidural, no pain meds after. Like I didn't need it because it was just like, I just had a baby. That's it. That's all I did. I just had a baby. And so you can do it. Trust your body, listen to the doulas, eat 100 grams of protein a day when they tell you to. That's hard, but you can do it. I also was a little anemic when I was pregnant, and so they recommended that I get some Floridex, and I'm singing the praises of that stuff now. It's great. It worked like a charm, and it gives you the iron without the constipation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an amazing birth experience, and I'm so happy that I had Kathleen and Samsara to just like coach me through and to hear me out and um, to support me and to like just show their faith in me when I was going up against a big healthcare system that really wanted me to do something different. They gave me the tools and information and support I needed to feel confident in like pushing back against a really big healthcare system. So
Thank you, Sweet Pea. One of the things you shared with me was how your connection to like your ancestors and your spirituality helped you. Would you mind saying a few words about that?
yeah, I mean, okay, so one of the things that I'm very connected, you know, just to my family, my spirituality, my ancestors, all of that. And it helped me to really center myself. And my mother was telling me that she gave birth to all of us girls naturally. And then she was saying that that her mother, my grandmother, gave birth to all 7 of her children naturally. She was like, so this is part of your lineage that you can do this, you can do it naturally, and that you don't need intervention. And like for me, it was really just about, you know, continuing that, knowing that I was pulling on the strength of my ancestors and that I had this lineage to support me and ground me and to go into that experience with. So yeah, um, all natural births, all natural conceptions, like we can do it. And it, you know, I felt like it was part of my birthright and my legacy to be able to do that. And then Samsara was saying that, you know, I had like a DNA memory of a natural
Oh,
birth.
your memory, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
because I was born naturally, so there was something inside of me that already knew how to do it, that I could do it. So,
Thank you for sharing that, hon.
yeah.
Really appreciate it. So, mamas, we have Kara and Emerald who would like to speak next.
I'll go next. Thanks for having me here.
Hey, Mom.
Thanks for sharing those stories. They're really incredible. I love hearing everybody's different experiences.
Mhm.
So I take it to the way back. My daughter is now 12. So this is in 2009. And when I got pregnant, I knew that I wanted to have a home birth. Like I just knew that I'm not, the whole business of the hospital and everything like that just didn't align with my value systems and everything. And so I knew that I definitely want to have a home birth, but we lived in this really teeny, tiny little house. And so I found this birth center in Oakland, Sacred Birth Center. And my partner and I walked in and there was a circle of women there, pregnant mamas and Samsara and the midwife and a couple other doulas, I think, were with you. And I thought I was going to shop around, but as soon as I sat down, and I just remember seeing you first, and there was just this like this knowingness. Your presence was so grounded, and I immediately felt safe, and I was like, all right, yep, this is it. And so the support through my pregnancy was huge because I had a lot of questions, that weren't mainstream, and the education that I received with the questions that I had were really valuable. So, anything about vaccinations, I was just given the information and then able to make my own decisions. Nutrition, given the information, then able to make my own decisions and supported in no matter what I chose. And that felt really important to me because I was going against some of the like social norms or mainstream norms, and it was scary. And so yeah, we developed this relationship through pregnancy, and the beginning of my pregnancy, I was really sick. And then I had what they called a subchorionic hematoma, where my daughter's placenta detached and reattached to the uterine wall. And so I woke up bleeding and then had to go and get the like ultrasound, and it was scary. But then when I would come into my appointments, I was just loved up on. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I felt loved. I felt seen. I felt like my experience mattered. And then I was also, again, guided into making choices, like educated so I could make choices for myself that felt really good to me. So fast forward to, 2 weeks before her due date. It was the last full moon before her due date. My friends had created this birth altar for me. So I put my crystals outside under the full moon. And like an hour later, I'm standing in her little nursery that we had set up with my mother-in-law. And she's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I don't know. This full moon's really messing with me. She's like, is it? I'm like, yep, I think my water just broke. So just like that. So tell my husband, go call the midwives. And so he called y'all and he told us to come down to the birth center. And I'll never forget driving to Oakland, and all of a sudden the sun was like, it was like sunrise, I think, at that time. Because you told me to sleep for a while. That's what. So I slept for a little while, tried to get some sleep, and then my contractions got closer. And so then y'all told me to come in, and like I remember seeing the sunrise over the bay as we were driving through the tunnel. So we get to the birth center, and my contractions are feeling pretty active. I'm sitting there, and Samsara comes in. I remember the look on your face, and you said, honey, I have to tell you some bad news. And I was like, okay. And you said, your midwife just fell down 13 marble stairs and she's in the hospital. And so this woman that like was going to, help me guide my birth in the support team that we had created over these months, they're no longer going to be available. And I don't know what the look must have been on my face, but I just remember you sitting there with me for a moment and just holding me, just like totally holding space for me. And I knew in that moment that I was going to be okay. I'm going to get emotional about this. Sorry.
Please don't be sorry.
But like, I just can't explain the level of support that I felt. And I think like with I don't know, my experience as a birthing mother, and then as a parent all these years, that support is something that I cherish and really, yeah. So then my contractions weren't that strong. So I'm going home again, and then came back to the birth center, and then the real saga started. So I won't go on and on about it, but I was in labor for 3 days, and we tried every intervention possible. I remember the acupuncturist coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I remember y'all surrounding me. And at that time, my parents and my husband's parents were sleeping there with us in the next room. And two of my best friends, one who is a labor and delivery nurse, and the other one who has birthed 4 babies at home, were both there with me as well. So to have the duality of that support was really interesting as well. My friend, this nurse, totally stayed out of the way and was really enamored and like in awe with the way that she saw everybody functioning. Actually, she was like, this is really incredible, So I definitely had my people around. So acupuncturist came in. Oh, so my daughter was sunny side up, and her feet were in the lotus position. So she basically had her legs crossed.
Wow.
So every time I had a contraction, it looked like I had butterfly wings, right, in my belly.
Yes. Yeah.
And so then, yeah, so we did acupuncture. I went to that chiropractor at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I remember y'all going in manualing and trying to flip her over, and then she would turn back around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I drank castor oil. That was the gnarliest thing ever. This on top of all the herbs, the homeopathics, like everything. We were trying to do everything to get this baby out. Moaning in the tub. I mean, there was salt water flying everywhere. There was drumming, I think at one point, chanting. Like it was it was a whole experience for sure.
Oh dear. So just a point of clarification for in case some nosy people are watching this in the future. There was a licensed midwife on the premises.
Yes.
But Claudette was called in, but because you and I already had a bond, so I continued working with you, as first midwife, but Claudette was right there making sure.
Yeah. And she was your mentor, right?
Yes, I adore Claudette.
Yeah. Yeah. So I knew that she was there on the premises as kind of like overseeing everything, knowing that I was in good hands, but I had developed a relationship with you. And so that's what really felt important. So yeah, it was just so much support.
I was the student midwife. My current preceptor is making sure I don't say anything stupid. So thank you. Thank you, Laura. But
intervening. I appreciate that. So then, so then after that, I stayed at about 6 centimeters for like, I think at that point, too long for me. I mean, and so then finally, I remember you all coming in and saying, it's time, we have to go to the hospital. And I was just crushed. I was so crushed. And even to be supported in that, of knowing that like this birth that because I was like, this is a primal thing. My mom, I was born in 14 minutes. I came out almost in the car. Like, you know, I had this whole idea of what this was going to look like, and everything went completely sideways on me. And I felt totally out of control, but deeply supported. And the way that you all supported my partner at the time too was like, he was also in labor. And I remember you all kept saying that, but the way that you were like, make sure he eats something, make sure he sleeps. Cause this is, you know, we're 3 days deep at this point. So it was a long time to be in that space together. It was just like, so we go to the hospital, we get checked in, and I just remember like every time a nurse would leave, you all would share some information with me, like, you don't have to do that, or you can do that, or this is, here, take some vitamin C because you might be starting to spike a fever, or these other interventions. And so anyway, sorry, I know I'm going a long time, but they put me on Pitocin at that point. And at that time, then I was like, I'm tired. I've been doing this for 3 days now. My body's exhausted. I've literally done every intervention possible at this point.
yeah.
I was like, and the Pitocin hit me so hard that I was like, all right, I'm ready for some pain meds. So they gave me some pain meds and didn't touch me. So then I finally opted in for an epidural. So, and this was like against, I mean, I don't even take Tylenol. Like this was against everything I have ever, you know, had thoughts. But so they gave me the epidural and I finally fell asleep. And then I slept for about, I don't know, even a couple hours. And then I woke up and they're like, oh, you're dilated at 10, let's push. And so I'm like, okay, let's push. So I start pushing and push for 3.5 hours and nothing. And I remember the look on the nurse's face. She was like, we can see the crown of this baby's head, and we've never seen anybody push like this that's on an epidural before. There's literally fluid coming out around the baby's head. You should be shooting this child across the room. We don't know what's going on. And I just then remember her heart started going, like she started being distressed. And I remember the other doula, because there was, Raphael was there as well, really advocating for me. Oh, I'm sorry. Then they got the suction cup out. So I remember the doctor had one foot on the bed and one foot on the floor and was pulling the suction cup on my daughter's head, and it pops off of her head. I just remember Raphael looking at the doctor and said, you will not be doing that again. And I was like, oh God, what's happening? So at that point, her heart rate started getting distressed, and y'all told me it's time to go in for a C-section. And so again, just crushed, like totally crushed again. But so I went in for the C-section, and it turns out that, yes, she was in the lotus position. She was sunny side up. The cord was also twice around her neck. And so they had to literally push her back up the birth canal because she was stuck like this for about 3.5 hours. She was stuck in the birth canal. And I remember having this really great team actually in the OR. It was all female identifying people. It seemed to me they had music playing. I felt loved. I felt supported. And they were communicating a lot with me. Like the anesthesiologist, like, can you feel this? And I was like, yep, can still feel that. She was like, dang, kept like dosing me higher and higher, but my body was just done at that point. So we had the C-section, and then the aftercare too. Like I came back and I had been taking so much like arnica, and then having people, my family were bringing me food instead of eating the hospital food. And I just remember walking, because then my daughter was in the NICU because she was jaundiced. She had had quite the birth experience herself, obviously. And I remember she wasn't nursing on one side. And so we were able to bring a chiropractor in per Samsara's recommendation, and he's able to adjust her. And then she was nursing beautifully. So thank goodness I was able to do that. That went well for me. That's the only thing. But I remember the nurses trying to come in and bring me like all these like heavy drugs. And I was like, no, I'm good. Just give me a Tylenol and I want to go see my baby. And they're like, who are you? Like, you should be on all these drugs and laid out right now, but you're literally walking around the halls in your yoga pants, going and taking care of your baby and nursing her. And I was like, yeah, because I'm being supported. Like I was eating well and taking, the right herbs and things like that. And so
You
then
were
we
so
finally,
strong, Mama. You were so strong and in such good health through the whole pregnancy so that you could withstand a rocky journey and still be rocking,
yeah. Thank you for that. I remember you two coming in as well and like doing a bit of a ritual with my daughter. I just wanted her to like be bathed. And it was a few days, into us being there. And I just remember you all taking such loving, tender care of both she and I in that space. And like, she really was an extension of me. And yeah, I could just tell y'all like loved up on her just as much as I had been loved up on. So, and then that too, the aftercare after we got home, because I came home now and I'm like, well, the hype is over because I'm not the pregnant woman anymore. But like, where is everybody? And kind of had that baby blues thing sort of hit me. But I had those aftercare visits. So y'all would show up and come and like talk to me, love up on me, see how we were doing. And that felt really just so important at that time. I mean, I had community, I had friends, but it was different because y'all had rocked with me through this experience. And so that type of connection was just such a huge gift for me. And then even like off subject, but like 4 years later, I'm now going through a really surprising divorce. And I remember calling you and you and I connected somehow, and you actually met me for coffee and like still listened to me. And I still felt like, oh, this is still my mentor, my person to like be able to like work through these really huge initiations in my life. And so like, you're just so valuable. And so to your question of what would I tell an expecting mama is seek support and ask for it and receive it when it's available. And it can be very surprising where it comes from sometimes. But yeah, be open to being supported because, deserving. It's to me, I don't know, birth was such a huge initiation in my life. And community and support felt really, again, really valuable. So.
I've got big love for you. So
Likewise.
thank you for sharing that amazing, wonderful story. And I'm trying not to cry because definitely there were lots of tears that night as part of the rite of passage, that you were going through, and so much love as we give to all of our beautiful mamas, but definitely put a truckload on you because there was stuff going on, and I'm so glad to hear how that helped you through that.
Yeah, thank you.
And
yeah.
She's 12.
And she's 12. She's still very much her own person. She's still not doing anything the way that I would anticipate, but I love her for it.
As they start is the way they go. So
yeah, and that's part of too. Like this was like my first lesson in parenting, right? I thought that I'm very open and like in the flow type of person, but I kind of thought things were going to go a certain way. And even with parenting, it's like allowing the baby, the child, the person to be the barometer for me has been a big deal in my parenting. And like, that was very real from the very beginning of our relationship. She still calls me her first apartment. And so there much is that, that experience. So
great.
Anyhow, thank you all. And thanks for all the stories today. I really, really love hearing from everybody.
Thank you so much, my dear. And the Mama Emerald, how are you?
I'm good. I won't be too long, guys.
No worries.
Marina is with us tonight, so which is my bonus daughter. So I had Elodie 6 months ago, and I actually was introduced by Kathleen and Samsara through my best friend's sister-in-law, who actually Samsara trained her as doula. So when I thought, wow, I know Beverly is a doula, and I was just pregnant and was like, I want a natural birth because my sister did it and my mom. And I reached out to the specialists, right? Thinking, okay, I'm very type A, as Kathleen and Samsara will tell you. I think things on a product named I'm very tactical. Uh, and none of that happens all throughout my birth experience. So I will just, Cara, I'm with you on that. And so I really wanted a natural birth. I really wanted to do the best thing in my research. I was pregnant during a pandemic, which was mentally taxing on me and physically. I was also my partner and I hadn't been together for like many years, so we were still kind of new, and it was just a lot. To be honest with you, going through a lot, being pregnant, and just kind of not being able to see people, right? Which is a challenge in itself. So things just never went to plan during my pregnancy. I gained a ton of weight. It was really hard for me to um, eat sometimes because I just was a little bit more stressed. But I tried to do the 100 grams of protein, even though it was so hard, and just tried to eat as best as I could. Along with, get my ass on that Peloton as much as I could, even if it was just for 5 minutes. Or walk around the block. So I would do those things. But as far as like the support, and I think I just can echo what Cara is saying, is that the support and the kind of the education, which I really value education. And if I had a question about kind of what I was hearing, which I love my OB, I had a great experience. I love him to death to this day. But also just him, like me hearing what he has to say from the medical physician, and he's a Black medical physician, not a Black patient, and then coming to my doula and being a person of color, and she telling me what the other options are on the other side, and trusting, and then making a decision for myself, which was really, really important. And my partner and I would discuss these things, Ruben, to just make sure that they were the best decision for me and our baby. And so basically, skip to I was over 40 weeks. I was like 40 weeks and 5 days when I ended up having Elodie. I wanted her to get out of me. To be very honest with you, by 38 weeks, I was like, I'm done. I'm done being pregnant. I'm swollen from my hands are swollen, my feet were swollen, everything was swollen. I've never been so heavy in my life as far as like physically feeling heavy and fatigued. But I would do it all over again, to be honest with you. And so for me, it was that kind of exhaustion and not being able to kind of do the things I normally do, and having to rest my body, which Samsara and Kathleen kept trying to tell me over and over again. So please listen to them, even though I'm a bit hard-headed. But basically, they ended up doing this wonderful castor oil treatment. So if you're overdue, you do not need to be induced. They rubbed my body, gave me the best massages my entire pregnancy, and just made me feel so loved and supported. And literally, LED came out the next morning, which was really beautiful. My water broke, and I thought I just had to go pee pee, and it wasn't. And eventually, there was meconium fluid in my toilet or whatever, and I thought, this is weird. It doesn't supposed to look like that. And I called Samsara, and she said, "Oh yeah, honey, you have to you should go. You basically, I couldn't labor as long as I wanted to at home, and I needed to go to the hospital, one, to check to make sure that it was meconium fluid, and then two, to just see how far it, like, I was just shocked. I didn't really know what to expect. And I just kept leaking, and I had a couple scares, like 2 weeks before my water broke, and I kept just leaking this fluid. So I had went to triage before, and they told me that it wasn't anything. There wasn't any sort of oh my god, I can't think.
Amniotic fluid.
Amniotic, thank you. Amniotic fluid in my when they tested it. And so luckily all of our bags were packed and everything, and we went to the hospital. At that time, it was really kind of, I was November, so COVID was like, you still can't allow a doula in, and we were really hoping that we could. Ruben, it was just Ruben and I, and he, as you most of you know, he probably Danielle might know, your partner can't come to any of your appointments. So this was like his first kind of introduction to all of it, and which was really special and also kind of scary. But I will tell you that like the things in the preparation I think I got from Samsara and Kathleen were wonderful. It was just tons of love, tons of education, also just like simple things for me, like the coloring the cards, which I really appreciated. I still have those cards and they still are in Elodie's room because they were really special to me. They were just these like beautiful pictures, almost like a coloring book that said like different things like be strong or um, there was one in there that was like breathe. And I think it was like, um, I forget. I'm sorry. I have a 6-month-old, so sometimes my
Yeah,
brain. But it was just a lot of like, affirming, kind of relaxing cards that were just kind of like, you can do this. Like, just breathe. This too shall pass. Like all of the contractions, because when I ended up getting to the hospital, I was dilating very quickly. So like within
very quickly.
10 minutes. And then I felt like, I mean, Ruben was keeping the time. Honestly, he probably knows more than I do. But he was like, you were dilating. And then by like an hour or two, I was like 5 minutes like in between contractions. And there was one point that I was like 90 seconds. I felt like it was literally every time. And then when they checked finally checked me, I went to the hospital about 8:30, 9 a.m. And then they checked me at 3 p.m. and told me I had only dilated 3 centimeters. I was really mad because at that point I was contracting every 90 seconds. So I was just like exhausted physically and just, it was a lot of intensity. And I was really doing my best and trying to like breathe through it and look at my little cards that I had colored and trying, but it was just really, it was the hardest thing I think I've ever done. So I ended up getting an epidural around 6 p.m. I basically had labored for about 14 hours before I had decided like I'm going to get an epidural. And so once I did that, Elodie's heart rate kept dropping. So there was a lot of franticness. I was pushing for, I think, maybe an hour or so, hour and a half, but and constantly being turned with that peanut ball. And I had like my yoga ball. There's a lot of different, we had our Rebosa. And so we were holding it. I did so many positions in that hospital. To try to relax and go with the contraction. But at that point, I felt like I was very weak, and I looked at Ruben, and I think in that moment, our bond and our strength was just like, I don't know if I can do this naturally. And he was like, you can do whatever choice you make, I support you. And I think to have a partner there to just tell me that gave me so much life, and also just gave me um like I was, because I'm type A, I wanted something, and my body was just telling me that like right now, you need to do something for some comfort because you're exhausted. And so I did that, and I was able to. We ended up getting rushed to the OR because her heart rate just kept being in distress, and they thought that we might do a cesarean, but she ended up being too far down the birth canal, so they vacuumed her a little bit, and she came out at 8 pounds and 10 ounces. And but for me, the hardest, besides being pregnant and then like kind of having this really traumatic labor of like being rushed to an OR and not having your partner, and it was very quick, um was seeing her and holding her, and just getting her to lay on my chest and knowing everything was okay. And I think for me, the after experience is really when everything's kind of took a moment to kind of sink in, where I'm so proud of my body for the things that it did, about carrying her, laboring through her, and even my recovery, because I tore, I had a 3B tear, which is really pretty intense. And so my recovery took about 3 months. And that whole process was really challenging for someone who constantly wants to go and doesn't want to rest, and allowing my body to actually get the rest that it needs to, because trusting my doulas and hearing them, and me actually physically having to kind of break down and say, I have to listen to them and also listen to my body, because my body can't move as fast as my willpower and I want to. And it helped us in so many ways with connecting and taking that time to bond with Elodie. She was great at latching, and still does to this day. So she's a great breastfeeder. But the whole experience for me was just like like hard, but also just really incredible, and special, because there's no words, in my opinion, that I can say that will quantify the love that I feel for Elodie, or the love that I feel for Samsara and Kathleen, because they helped me through so much that was really a challenge for me. I mean, being pregnant during a pandemic and giving birth during a pandemic is like nothing else. I mean, I can't describe it. And so for those who are pregnant, I'm so happy that the world is turning for you. I'm a bit jealous, I have to say that, but and that's just honesty, but I am so happy because um, it was hard. It was hard. And that's all I can really say. But for those mamas, I mean, the one thing word of advice I can give you is, um, I guess for me, expect the unexpected. So be flexible in those moments where you might feel a bit of anxiety. Try to breathe and just try to meditate. That's really, really important, not only for just yourself, but it's also really important for your baby. I do the meditation now as a mom because I need it, and days are hard. Sleep deprivation is real shit. And there's so many gimmicks out there that people can tell you, but it's really important for you to trust your intuition, something that I've learned as a new mom. Um, and yeah, and Samsara and Kathleen, they know I love them so much. So I'm very busy and I don't always get a chance to reach out, but the strength that they gave me during my pregnancy and after was incredible. So you all are in great hands.
Thank you, sweet pea. Yes, the being a doula during pandemic. My goodness, my goodness. One of the blessings of that of this time, because it's not over for all doulas everywhere, but was the really nice bond that I was able to build with dads. Like I love my dads, and I give dads all kinds of love and support all the time. And because I could not be in the room with my clients, which is like horrible, the communication between the dad and me became really, 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 really important. And I remember so many texts from Ruben telling me everything that's going on, and the doctor said this, and the midwife said that, and he was just really on it, and just really helped me to not be I trust I trust women's bodies' ability to have babies, even though it's hard. And I'm a control freak too. I wanted to be right there holding your hand and, stroking Ruben's back and doing my doula thing. And I was being prevented. So, but he was wonderful. And I'm just so happy for your beautiful little girl. Yeah, I'm just so happy for all of you lovely mamas and your powerful stories and your different stories. You all did birth differently, and courage was needed, and your ancestors were down, had to be down, and I'm glad, so grateful for the your feelings about your doula support. That means a lot to me and Kathleen. And Mika sends her love. She has family in from out of town, otherwise she'd be here tonight. So she's sending her love to you as well. So I want
to one thing. Mika's
Sure.
great. I got my placenta. I did my placenta pills, and fantastic. Especially prevented my baby blues as hard as
we do.
Yeah.
And
I
a plug
still
for
have
the encapsulation. Good job.
working through them, so it's wonderful. I highly recommend it.
Excellent, excellent. Oh no, Kara, your placenta is still in the freezer? What the heck is going on with that?
I still have a placenta.
I couldn't get it encapsulated in time because it was a C-section. I was there for 4 days and we couldn't get it. So I've been always waiting to like plant it under a tree. It'll happen. Maybe when she starts bleeding, I'll do it.
That's powerful. That's
Yeah,
very powerful. Wow. So I wanted to thank you all for your amazing, powerful stories. And I wanted to open it up for folks if they wanted to ask any questions of you to be able to do so. So our folks want, and to comment as well, comment and questions. So who wants to do that?
I was curious which massage made the water break. What was the water breaker massage? The first mom mentioned that someone was giving a massage and they made her water break. I was just curious.
It was the castor oil. And the castor oil, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was the one that Sarah and Mika did. Yeah, I think with castor oil and some essential oils.
Was it like a back massage or where was it?
It was a massage in the hospital.
I mean, like physically on the body. Like, was it on the back? Was it on the hips?
All over.
So as you do your reading of the Granny Midwives, that's a Granny Midwife trick. And I say that with the greatest of respect because it's not a trick. And it's a way to give a plant-based prostaglandin, but you're not putting it in somebody's mouth, which is our line in the sand. Doulas can't put things in people's mouths, but a topical rub. So it's a warm oil rub with some castor oil and a carrier oil. It could have been sesame oil or olive oil and some lovely essential oil. I usually trust my ancestors about that. They kind of tell me what each mama needs. So you all probably got different oil, but you definitely got at least in a little bowl, a third was castor oil and the rest was a carrier oil and then some drops of an essential oil. I'd have to look at my notes to tell you which one it was for each one of you.
I find different oils help at different stages in labor. So lavender, usually in the beginning for calming, and sometimes some peppermint during transition. And
when someone's tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually a thing because doulas have to do a lot of things doulas have to operate a lot like Granny Midwives because Granny Midwives didn't do badge exams and they didn't do all this other stuff. There have to be other ways to determine things. And one of the things that happens often for me is that mamas love, they love lavender until transition and then they quit. And they hate it. They're like, ew, get that away from me, ew. And before that, she was like, oh, lavender. So it's one of those things that could give you a little clue that, oh, things have shifted. Now mom needs something else. And then we just do to something else. Any other questions for the moms?
I have a question. First, my comment is thank you so much all for sharing. I feel like each one of you had stories that like had your own really unique specific element to it. And so each one had value and I really appreciated it. It was so interesting. I feel like I was transported to the birth. So thank you for all of your details and everything and sharing. My question would be for the moms that like started out or even just like carried out the labor, not necessarily delivery, but the labor at home. What were some of the like relaxing I guess, like rituals that you noticed yourself doing? Like if you guys had any like patterns that you were following that was helping you relax, or any little tricks that you found yourself doing that was bringing you peace of mind. Do you mind sharing?
For me, it was music. Like I actually made a labor playlist that I did not use. I went to like I have this like standard, like this is me, this is my spirit, this is my everything playlist, and that's the one that worked. And I just had that pretty much going like the entire day. My labor took 8.5 hours, like on the dot. And I pretty much had that playing like when I went to the hospital the first time, when I was in the car, when I got back home, like that just got me through. And I think it was because I knew the songs and I knew what they meant to me. And it was just like I was able to just like get into the rhythm of it. And then when I needed to tune them out, I could, because I knew the songs already. So it just felt like, yeah, music for me. I just love it.
Mine was warm showers, a big deal for me. Bouncing on the yoga ball. I've been a yogi for a long time too, so breath work was helpful, and asking for touch, because touch is one of my love languages too. So asking for my head to be rubbed or my body.
Yeah, never underestimate the power of your ball, your yoga ball, birth ball. It's great, and it just, yeah, you just need it. You need it, so use it.
Emerald or Michelle, would you like to answer that?
As far as well, I mean, most of my labor was in hospital, but you know, as far as being in hospital, what did I do that kind of was relaxing? Yeah, I mean, I agree. I did have a playlist for my music, but I didn't use it either. It just didn't fit. I guess you just had to be in the moment, and also just breathing is just a big thing. Just, yeah, just getting you through whatever is going and just helping you to let go, which is the big thing. At least for me, just try to just let everything go. So.
I can agree to that. I think the beautiful cards that you have to color, which is good, the patient actually has to color, was really helpful. To have, it was like having a beautiful Tibetan flag, you know, the things up. And so that was super helpful. And I agree, the yoga ball, never underestimate your yoga ball. It was the best thing. And I guess just, you know, for me it was having my partner to really like lean on. And we did all these practicing of these poses all the time with our rebosa. And for me, my rebosa was like the most calming thing. Like I wanted to keep that dang rebosa. I would end up ordering one, but but that rebosa was like my comfort and my blanket. um it just made me feel warm and supported.
We're big Rebozo fans for sure, for sure, for sure. Any other questions for mamas or comments? I see a little heart on the screen. That's very nice. Come on, y'all doulas, especially you new doulas need to be asking some questions.
I'll ask. I know some people mention why they chose a doula. I think Emerald said that she had the reference from her sister-in-law, but I was curious what made the other women choose having a doula specifically.
What do you think, mamas?
Okay, I'll quickly go. I'll just say, for me, I knew that I wanted to do my birth as naturally as possible. In my imaginations, in my earlier life, I always thought that I would have a doula. It became more and more important for me as I realized that I was going to be an older mom, and I was getting all of this information from the world about what my pregnancy was going to be, what my baby was going to be, all of that stuff. And I just wanted someone who was going to be in my corner. And that is why I, sought out a doula. So
Thank you, Danielle. Anyone else want to speak to that?
Yeah, I chose a doula because I knew again that I wasn't going to do things like the mainstream way of going to hospital and doing all of that. And so I knew I needed to echo Danielle, actually, of like somebody in my corner that knew me and knew my story and knew what my desires were, that could be my advocate if something did go a certain direction, which in my case it clearly did. And so to have somebody be able to speak for me, knowing that we had this experience together, that I trusted, and also knew the medical system and knew what we were looking at. Be like with Michelle sharing, like saying yes to things just because doctors saying them. Like I knew I didn't want to be in that space, and I knew that I could possibly be flustered in the middle of labor and saying yes to things that I otherwise would not have wanted to. And then when things got really serious, somebody that I really trusted to say, no, this is actually what we need to do now. So really to build a trusting relationship with somebody that I knew would be able to speak for me and be my advocate felt important.
Thank you. What do you think? Okay.
Yeah, I just, I think for me, a friend of mine had a doula, and she had kind of recounted her experiences with her doula, and I thought, well, that's exactly what I would like. And it was really more just, I didn't really quite understand exactly what Samsara and Mika were going to help me with. I really didn't understand, just how big it was going to be against this system that really doesn't help mothers. For me, it was really just wanting a natural birth. And that's pretty much all I'd signed up for. And then there was all this other stuff that came that Samsara and Mika spoke about and helped us navigate, that was really interesting. I just never realized, how much of the system we were pretty much fighting against. And personally, it was pretty scary for me because, you sort of think, okay, well, you're going to go to a hospital and they're going to take care of you. But really, no. I mean, the more I read about it, the more books I read, the more, Samsara and Mika educated me and my husband. It was frightening, really. And so to a certain extent, I think Samsara and Mika was able to sort of calm me down a little bit. It's like, look, you can do whatever you want, but but it was scary. The more I learned about what's happening with mothers, it's frightening, and it's still frightening. And I'm just so appreciative that we have people like Samsara around to really fight against that. That's just, yeah. I think you, Samsara, just opened up my eyes a lot.
Thank you. It's not that we are in any way, shape, or form against medicine. We just want medicine used in a wise way, and for individual women to be trusted and respected as people with minds that think, and ancestors who they talk to, and a soul and a mind and an opinion that should be valued. And those are the important things. And there is a time where, like, you just, if you don't coerce, and if you give a woman and her partner the information, they're intelligent enough to make a decision, right? I mean, that conversation that Cara and I had to have together when it was like, sweetie pie, I get my well up since I started talking about it. We were sitting in the classroom with your family and everyone, and talking about how, we need to pray and think about going to the hospital now, and how you had that time to cry and be witnessed, we were all loving you, and how you were able to do something you did not want to do. You did not want that. But you had the space and respect in order to feel the wisdom of it in your body and then move forward, not pushing you, not lying to you, not, coercing you. It doesn't have to be like that. It's a shame that it is. Trauma can be, if somebody needs medication, they should have it, but it shouldn't be forced upon them. It shouldn't be an assaultive situation, which is kind of the way folks are trained. And then, there are doctors who are trying to do it differently, and then they get their medical licenses taken away. It's really sad. It's a really nice doctor recently who's in LA who's like not working anymore because he was like, women can have babies. And they were like, what you say? So that stuff is really sad. We got time for one more question or comment if folks have one.
I kind of wanted to ask a little bit about when the moms felt that they got the most out of talking about breastfeeding in their prenatals before you have your baby. I know as both a birth and postpartum doula, I talk about them at both stages. Of course, it's different when you have that hungry baby in your arms. But at what point did you find that it was most beneficial for your doula to begin speaking to you about breastfeeding?
I mean, I think, right. I mean, the timing for us was, I think, our second to last session, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that was really helpful. It's the one thing that everyone talks about, or you think about, right, as a new mom, like that you want to breastfeed because there's so much, I think, empowerment of you should breastfeed now, right? Versus maybe 25 years ago, it was like formula. And so, but also like the realness of breastfeeding and how it can be mentally fatiguing, like incredibly mentally fatiguing. And yes, if you want to breastfeed, that's a great choice. But, also, and the benefits of breastfeeding and staying the course, even when it's a challenge, because I know new mamas that had babies that couldn't latch and had to pump and then bottle feed but stayed the course of really wanting to breastfeed and ended up getting a great lactation consultant, and now she is latching, where I'm now weaning, right? Because I feel like my goal was to do it for this amount of time and feeling good about my decision. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like the doula for me, and when the timing of it was really, really helpful. Because Samsara and Kathleen told me about the benefits, and then even the aftercare. I mean, Kathleen and I sat in my bed and we were like trying to get Elodie to not like bite my nipple. So and trying to like get it like in a good position. Because it was like, I don't know, it really hurts. She's like, oh, it's because you're doing this. And so we like teamed up. And after that, I literally had no more pain in my nipples. And so it was super, super helpful for me understanding and educating myself at that second to last section. And then that aftercare of actually having someone come and show me what I'm doing either wrong or right and adjusting. So that way she can eat or he can eat.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll just say real quickly, I think to have the support right before of knowing the benefits, I knew I wanted to breastfeed anyway, but knowing the benefits, being really educated about the colostrum and, and then as your baby grows, your milk changes and all of those, or, her immunity. And then of course, through the experience that we had, being able to get her neck adjusted so she could latch on differently was a big deal, because I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, why won't she latch on this side, but she'll latch on that side? But looking at both of us and what anatomically was happening with her was really a big deal. And then I ended up nursing her till she was 3.5. And so we ended up having a really long relationship to nursing, that's what worked for us. But so yeah, I was grateful for that information too.
Shanae, go ahead and ask your question.
I just wanted to know, Kara, did the chiropractor visit you in the hospital? Oh no. Okay.
I wish.
No. Okay.
No, but Cara was for a long time at the birth center.
Okay.
The majority of her journey, you were in the birth center. And so acupuncturists can come to the birth center and chiropractors will come to the birth center. I wish that they could come to the hospital.
That'd be great.
That would be very helpful, won't you think? But then there'd be a lot less medicines used, most probably. Yeah. So, wonderful, marvelous mamas. I really want to thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for your incredible babies. Shout out to Dr. Bartlett. Yes, lift him up. Chiropractor, cranial sacral. He rocks and rolls. We love him. And thank you so much for being part of my professional life, my spiritual life. Thank you for being allowing me to do my life's work. I thank you on behalf of my beautiful assistants, Kathleen and Mika, who's not here, but she sends her love. I look forward to staying buddies with you and loving you and being whatever help I can be to you and your beautiful families for as long as you want help from me. So we're going to close. I want to talk to people. This is going to be loaded up to the Oakland Better Birth Foundation's YouTube channel, Better Birth TV. Y'all should all subscribe because we have good stuff on there, all kinds of interesting things. Not to mention my riveting discussions on The Handmaid's Tale. You really should be watching. Riveting. Are they not, Kathleen? Yes.
And it's tonight and it's on.
Soon as I'm done with y'all.
I know.
That show's off the chain. It's ridiculous. Okay. So, but not if you're nursing or pregnant. But if you aren't, watch the show. Anyway, so if you're watching on YouTube in the future, please like the video, please subscribe. We love you. We love to bring important information to pregnant mamas and their families and discussions about women and birth and sex and babies. That's all we're talking about on that channel. And so please join us there. I love you. Have a wonderful night. Kiss your children and or infants. Now, please make sure I have your current ID so that I can send you your gift. Because all of the moms who spoke tonight will get a copy of my beautiful client, Anna Malika Tubbs, wrote a beautiful book called Three Mothers. And she gave me 2 cases full and said, do what you want to do with them. Because, oh my God, I was so thrilled. New York Times and everything she's doing. And she just gives me a bunch of books. So I'm going to give my mommies who spoke tonight a copy. It's a really beautiful book. Make sure I have all of your current addresses. I know y'all move, people bought houses, moved around. So I can get that book to you as a thank you for your time tonight. Good night.
Thank you all so much. Wonderful
night,
to see your
Good night.
faces. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Good night.
Bye, Santara.
Bye, babies. Bye.